I opened another salon today, what would I do? I boiled this down to 5 non-negotiables, and those 5 came to me very quickly. And usually when I'm sitting down and I'm writing an outline, that is not the case. So I know that these 5 were pretty important. They're not in any particular order, but each one is worth its weight in gold. And I did all of these in my salon. We hit 7 figures in our 4th year open, and that was the first full year where I wasn't behind the chair at all. Now, 4 of these things I didn't do fast enough. So if I had to do it all over again, 3 of these would happen before we even opened. And then 2 of them I would try to make happen in the first 3 months. One of them may take a little longer. The first thing that I would do, I would 100% start an employee-based salon. I want to build a business that becomes way bigger than me. And the only way to do that is to have employees. Now, I'm sure that there's 2 to 5% of rental salons out there where the owner, the one who has the lease on their name, because they're all owners, has a great profit margin. I've never seen this, but it could exist. They would have to charge a premium to their renters and have some sort of agreement with them that's also legal that makes up a large part of their cash flow without having a lot of expenses attached to it. Again, I've never seen this, but it could exist. Now, a business that has a strong foundation with the ability to scale is never reliant on one person or even 2 people. And that's why employees are a must. When you have this kind of business, all the sales that come in from each service provider are commissioned out. And then the commission the salon keeps goes to paying the expenses, and anything that's left over is reinvested back into the business and the team, because that's what grows the company and it's what keeps your stylists and support staff. I would start off working behind the chair because I know that I could grow revenue really quick. And for a period of time, that would sustain most of our expenses, including payroll. But over time, I would scale back behind the chair, focusing on growing stylists that were better than me. That's my main job. Being behind the chair is solely to get us off the ground so I wouldn't have to take out a loan or use credit cards that you can't pay off every month because you're killed on interest. And I'd say at the 2-year mark, I'd be completely done behind the chair. And my main objective would be to go all in on growing the team. Okay, so the second thing that I would do, I would have our team policies already written out so every hire agrees and signs. We call these guidelines. Essentially, it's your employee handbook. I want to say this, though, before I get into these, because I want to make myself very clear on the come from, the intention. Policies or rules, or whatever you want to call them, they only feel harsh when leaders avoid clarity. If your team doesn't know where the line is, somebody's going to cross it because your standard is vague, and those gray areas, they create this unnecessary internal dialogue in the minds of your team. Then people get blindsided, they feel resentful, and that's when turnover starts to happen. Ask me how I know. And your team deserves to know what's okay and what's not, because when everyone is aware of the boundaries, they can just show up with confidence and focus on doing great work in a safe culture where the rules are consistent and fair, because people cannot grow in chaos. So I'm going to give you some examples of a few. In our team guidelines, I would have written out and be very clear on things like education days, whether they're paid or not. So everyone, crystal clear. Our pricing, that's also very clear. So if there's any discounting that's going on that wasn't approved, that's considered theft. What's acceptable for requesting off? The structure for PTO, how it's calculated, when you're eligible, a big one. The do's and don'ts of dress code, hair and makeup with very clear visuals, and then how they will be informed if they're not up to par so no one is surprised. What time they need to arrive at a shift, and then what's considered late, and then what happens after X number of times, because there's consequences. This is one of the main things that we do inside Rich Life CEO, where all of our professors share their employee handbooks and they help you create yours so you're not shooting in the dark. I get a lot of questions about this. I'm going to put a link below in the description on how you can get in touch with our admissions team if this is the kind of education that you know you need right now. I opened the salon in 2013. I learned a ton throughout the years, so our handbook evolved. Now, eventually, we created a section around resigning, strictly for clarity, and it was added to over the years. So if you're terminated or you resign, any investments that you've contributed towards for upcoming classes in or outside of the salon, you don't get those back. And that's because oftentimes we would front the money to pay for a class, and then the team would just pay their portion to the salon. So if we've already financially committed to something, you're not going to get that investment back. Now, on the other hand, if we've already financially committed to something in the future and you were in agreement and you have not paid your portion yet, you're responsible for your total within 30 days of your resignation notice. This is for clarity for them, but also for us. Those are just a few examples. So if you have some feelings of like, ooh, that feels a little controlling and I don't want to be controlling, remember that that's a perspective. And I bet my bottom dollar that it comes from past salon trauma. So anytime that you're feeling some internal resistance, ask yourself, why am I doing this? What do I want to create? And what do I want this business to look like in 10 years? That will always give you a level of discernment to let you know if the resistance that you're feeling is valid or if it's just fear. Now, if someone on your team chooses to view clear guidelines as controlling, then the why these guidelines are in place wasn't communicated well enough. There's a lack of trust in the relationship, or that person just isn't the right fit for your company. So then I have one more thing about having all the policies, guidelines, standards written out. And I don't want you to discount this part because it's big. The guidelines would start off with our company's vision and what our core values are, with examples under each value of what the value looks like when it's executed daily in the salon. The vision statement would be painted on a wall in the salon. It is my salon. Our core values would be in frames all over the place. I would use them to give praise, give feedback. They would be a deciding factor in hiring someone and also firing someone. Core values are the North Compass. They help you make smart decisions. Now, the third thing that I would do, if I was going to open a salon today, I would be extremely systematic on pricing for multiple levels. When I first opened back in 2013, I created the pricing structure based on what I knew at that point. And pretty much it was what my previous salon had done. And then for each level, I just increased it by 10 to 20%. There is a lot more that goes into service-based pricing. So I would know what our pricing was for service providers that were being trained and then what their model pricing looked like. I would understand my objective with doing models. And for me, that isn't to make money. It's to ensure that the model actually shows up and the service provider in training gets trained. So for us, our model pricing is super affordable because I'm not worried about making money. I want to get this person trained so they're extremely confident behind the chair. Then I would know how each of my levels are priced. I'd probably start off with 3 to 4 levels. And again, you can evolve as you go, but I would do heavy calculations. I would have a projected expense sheet handy so I could get a rough estimate of what my expenses are, because I want to make sure that I more than cover them. I'm not basing prices on expenses, but they are useful in the math. I'm not considering geographical location whatsoever. I know people will disagree with me on this, but that has never been anything that I've taken into consideration when it comes to price point, specifically in service-based businesses. I'm thinking about 3 things when I'm determining pricing. Expenses with a built-in profit margin. So I look at this the least because I want to far exceed expenses, and these will change over time and they can change quickly, but I am using it as a reference. I'm thinking about our USP, our unique selling point, what makes our company different than its competitors, and why a customer should choose us, especially when we are a commodity service and there are hair salons on every single corner. And then the third thing that I'm taking into consideration, most importantly, I'm considering the maximum time that each service is going to take. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper with that. Every service would have a time boundary. I don't want my team to be rushed because that sucks, working rushed. Working when you're rushed is not ideal, but we get to be efficient and considerate of our guests' time while also being aware of This is a career, not a hobby. And because service-based businesses sell time, meaning there isn't an infinite amount of it that we can sell, we have to make sure that pricing makes sense within the time we have available to serve guests. I always say we can't sell 1,000 haircuts on Amazon in a day. So we have to be very calculated with how we're pricing our services based on time. It's extremely important to the bottom line and the health and the longevity of your company. So you first may think, but everybody works at different paces. I have some really slow people and then I have some really fast people. Everyone does. This is where strong training and a curriculum in your training is ongoing, and it's key. This is also something that we do for our students, designing their full channel for pricing. So if you have a salon with team members, we create this by using your existing pricing. It's not the same for every salon. If we just made up a pricing out of thin air, no salons would implement it. Pricing is universally the biggest fear of any business owner. So we use your existing pricing as the foundation. We just make it 100 times healthier. And it's really fun to do this with a salon owner before they even open, or even if they have 1 to 3 employees. The fourth thing, I'd be crystal clear with my schedule as the owner. Hopefully I could nail this in the first 3 months. So personally, I would start off working 5 days a week, and 2 days a week I'd be off, enjoying time with my family, because that makes me better for work when I do show up to work. Now, 3 out of the 5 days, I would start off being behind the chair. They would probably be longer shifts, so at least 8 hours. On these days, I'm also training. So I have someone with me throughout every single service because my guests are accustomed to this. They even like it because they think it's cool that the owner trains everyone. And it's a way for them to build relationships with each person that I bring on the team. So some days I may have 2 people training with me. At first, nothing changes about the experience. Now, as the new hires start to get really good, certain things I'm handing off in the experience to them that I'm confident that they do better than me at that point, like the shampoo ritual, any bowl work, the blow dry. When you hone in on training them, people get really good really quick. This is exactly how I did it when I was behind the chair. Now, on certain guests, I'm filming. And I'm using that film for training because I would want to ensure that the guest experience obviously stays top tier. I'm not saying it to the camera, but I'm going to edit the video of me working afterwards, explaining parts I want to emphasize. This is how I would build up the technical portion and the soft skills portion of our training. So that's 3 days behind the chair. On the 4th day, I would start maybe 3 hours working from home. Then I would do 5 to 6 hours training in the salon. So training new team members, existing ones. I'd be scouting my team members to look for someone that's possessing strong leadership qualities and catches on quick. Because after the first year, they would start running the training program with me and eventually take it over. On the 5th day, I would start my day again, probably 3 hours from home, doing admin work. Then I would spend the rest of the day in the salon with nothing on my calendar, but using the time to on-the-spot coach, praise, connect with the team and guests. Schedule is super important. The last thing, my first hire would try to be my right-hand man, and they would start off on the desk. Now, this might take a little longer, so maybe not my first hire, but one of the most important hires. Long-term, this is one of the most important things to start with, even if you feel like you can't afford it. That's why at first, your time behind the chair is so important, and your pricing is so important. Because at first, your sales are going to be what pays for this person. So I'm thinking long-term here. I'm looking for someone that is really strong at what I am weak at. So I'm the visionary. I am creative. I can put together a very detailed system and process. But I'm not going to be the one that executes them, follows through on them, checks in on them, refines them. I can coach the team on them, but I can't be a part of every single process. I need someone else to put processes in motion and then make them happen consistently and continually. So this person, they have awesome customer service skills. They pay attention to the smallest details. They're really great at coaching and giving feedback, but they can also give praise. They are resilient, they are proactive, and they are resourceful. Huge qualities. They do really well with not having direction, but creating direction themselves and then communicating with me in a very concise way. They notice if something isn't up to our standard, they fix it, and they know how to get the team on board. They notice something is broken in a system or a process. They fix it, and they get the team on board. They put together contests, challenges for the team to make work fun. They know how to track and measure everything. They're extremely organized in our Google Drive where we house basically everything. And I'd be open to hiring someone that's seasoned depending on their work history and references. But I also would be open to hire someone that's green, that's younger or doesn't have a lot of experience, as long as they have these skills. And I would find out by a very thorough interview process. Either way, there is a training phase where I'm teaching them my standard, so their line of thought and execution remains at a very high level. Now, on my first point, I said around the 2-year mark, I would be behind the chair and I would retire. My main objective then would be to go all in on the team. By this point, my right hand, better than me at the day-to-day systems, structure, follow through, and ideally they'd have 2 to 3 people, not service providers, but guest happiness team, aka front desk, working with them. So their department, and they would handle, refine all the guest processes, and I would focus on team growth for existing team members and hiring, recruiting, onboarding new people. So we've got 100% start an employee-based salon. Have all of my policies already written out. Extremely systematic on pricing. Crystal clear with my schedule. And the most important hire would be my right-hand person, and they would start off on the desk. So I hope that this gives you a tremendous value. And if this opened up some new thinking for you and you're interested in working with us, I'm going to put the link below on how you can get in touch with our admissions team. Until next time, go out and positively impact people.